Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofit Show. We have one of our all-time favorites, one of my personal favorites, Dana Scurlock. She's the Director of Recruitment at Staffing Boutique. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much. I feel like I just saw you. We're doing two, and I'm my colleague Katie is traveling this week, and so I'm filling in. So I feel like I just saw you because I did. It was just a few weeks ago. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. I think this is like such an interesting conversation. Well, I'm fascinated anytime we get to talk with you and Katie, because, one of the big, and I'm going to use the word plagues, which I know is a little dramatic, but one of the big plagues in the nonprofit sector is all about labor. And with Staffing Boutique, you all have your fingers on the pulse of everything. And so really an important time for us to get with you and to talk about this. And we're going to talk about end of the year. We're going to be talking about employee perks, but end of the year, we're moving into our season of gratitude. And so, Dana, it's going to be really interesting for you to kind of give us some feedback on what you think and maybe how we can freshen it up a little, as they say. And so this is going to be really a great conversation for so many people that are like, oh, it's the end of the year. What do I do? I don't have any money, or I don't have any time, or I don't have any interest. And so with all that, I think we're going to have a pretty lively conversation. Another conversation we have day in and day out here on the Nonprofit Show is our immense gratitude to all of our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, our very own Staffing Boutique, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, our new episodes just dedicated to fundraisers and the hard work they do every Friday with Tony Bell, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Clear Impact, and Third Sector Company. These are the people that are just doing amazing things. We also have an amazing group of co-hosts, and our panel includes myself. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. Okay, my friend, Dana Scurlock, coming to us from New York City, Director of Recruitment at Staffing Boutique. Wow. How many years have you been doing this?
I have been in staffing since 2016, so it's going on like 18 years now. And I always was in staffing for nonprofits, believe it or not. It was just I started out as a candidate recruiter, which is a fancy title for like entering resumes into the database and making phone screens and scheduling like the actual interviews in person with the recruiters. And then I just worked my way up from there, really. And so Staffing Boutique is actually the third firm that I've worked for over those 18 years. I've always been in nonprofit staffing, actually.
That is riveting because it's so different. It's so
Hmm.
challenging. And yet I always love that you seem to know like the deeper meaning of things and the deeper implications. It seems to me like you must be part psychologist and like
Well, that falls
trends
under human
forecaster.
resources, doesn't it? It's like employee relations, and you can focus in human resources and human capital, and then sometimes it can be under the psychology branch, like at colleges and universities. So there definitely is a collation, I think, like you're
Yeah,
saying.
it's interesting. And then, dare I say, you have to be ultra tough too, right? You
Mm.
can't be a pushover. So you got to be like passionate and understanding, but then you got to like lay down the law and kind of navigate, I don't know, things that are probably a little dicey. So I'm
Yeah, a lot
fascinated
of, I
about
mean, you have to be able to have uncomfortable conversations and very like
that.
candid conversations with all different parties. So you kind of rip off the band-aid very early in recruiting. You get used to having like conversations that are most people would dread having to have once a year. You're kind of doing all the time.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Well, I appreciate your candor. And again, I always learn from you. And so because of the time we're talking, it's year end, let's talk about the truth about holiday parties. I don't know about you, but I swear this is like where a lot of corporate scandal happens. And I'm saying corporate, but business scandal. people
You're not.
have a little bit too much to drink, too much reverie. I always think it's because, and this is just my opinion, I feel like people are uncomfortable. And so they socially lubricate to like get through,
Yeah.
meeting the spouses, talking, making small
Hmm.
talk, trying to be social. And then sometimes that leads to other things.
No, it's true.
So, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's like you said, you're threading the needle between, some very delicate things. I think a holiday party is something that a lot of workers and employees are looking forward to at the end of the year. It's a chance to really get to relax and honestly celebrate the work that's been done over the past 12 months. I think that it's really hard, especially with nonprofits. There's not a like built-in bonus structure with most organizations, so the end
Right.
of the year can seem kind of anticlimactic to a lot of nonprofit workers. So at the very least, having the holiday party, making sure that everybody gets together, and it's a chance for the organization, like the actual staff, I think, to bond. If you don't have during the year any sort of like retreats or professional development, conferences and things like that that people are attending together, this is honestly more of like a staff meeting, a full staff meeting that's in a celebratory manner.
Mhm.
You are 100% right that it can sometimes lead to some like debauchery. And I'm always hearing, even from people at like temp jobs, like I've heard of people saying like, oh, I went to the event with the organization I'm working with. It got a little crazy. Or like once in a while, it's been our temp that got a little crazy at the holiday party. Like it definitely is. You have to use your best discretion and
Yeah.
definitely still treat it like it's work versus like just an all and out party. Like I'm not trying to characterize holiday parties as like a big kegger, like in a college or something. It needs to be something in between. Like obviously you can let your hair down. It can be a little bit more fun than the every day to day of work, but you need to also keep in mind as an individual, like you're still presenting yourself as a professional. But
Right.
I'm a big fan of holiday parties. Again, I think it's celebratory about the year's progress, coalescing everybody together before the holidays as we go into the new year, saying, reinvigorating our mission. This is what we're working towards. This is how and why we appreciate you as staff members. That's something that doesn't get said on the everyday. And I think the holiday party is a great time to reemphasize that. And I think employees need that. They need that encouragement. And it's also just a chance for them to, I mean, for lack of a better term, like get a free meal and some drinks and enjoy a night out. And there's like a benefit to that. Because it could be a potentially like fancy dinner that they're getting to attend that's not on their own dime. And I think
Right.
that they will appreciate the organization for providing that benefit.
So, Dana, what I hear you saying then is that you see that this is a time for, dare I say, remarks or some comments, maybe from the CEO or board chair or something like that, right? I mean,
I
you see
absolutely
it
think so.
as something that's organized and not just like show up between these hours and those hours, right?
Yeah, rather than just like, I mean, to me, a holiday party is like a great tool to use to galvanize staff, but it
Okay.
also needs to be useful. It's not just a party. So, absolutely, I think it doesn't have to be belabored. I think a lot of people, it's the end of the year, it's the holidays. There's probably a bunch of family speeches happening at every holiday at this time of year. So, people are, fatigued of that. But I think at least having maybe like a 5 to 10 minute presentation that first and foremost just expresses the gratitude that the management staff has for the employees, the day-to-day workers. I think that that's what's really important, is making sure that they feel valued and appreciated, and that this party is to celebrate them and to offer their thanks to them. I think those are the important things to hit with a holiday party, in addition to kind of spoiling them with like good food and drinks, that I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll appreciate.
Yeah. I really like that you added that moment of gratitude, that verbalization, like, is a quick, you could even do a quick recap of what successes you had, what's on the horizon. But I agree with you. I think that piece of gratitude is really important. And I loved what you said. It breaks my heart, but I agree with you. We don't always say this to our teams. We don't always hear this as a team member. And so that is kind of a reminder that this is a way to wrap it up and to say those things. Let's talk about the perks of additional holiday time off. I learned this from you last year when we were talking about year-end things, and you mentioned that there's nothing wrong, and sometimes it has huge value to tell your team, hey, you can take the afternoon off, or you can leave early, or you can take the whole day off, or whatever. Because especially if you're dealing with females, generally they have a lot of things to do to get ready for their family celebrations.
Oh, I mean, I could talk an hour about the disproportionate home labor that
Yeah,
female identifying people are
yeah,
usually saddled with. I think that's a whole half an hour in itself, or more
it
than half
is.
an hour. But you are absolutely right. A lot of working moms, wives, the bulk of the sort of holiday planning is falling upon them. They might be hosting. I wonder if you could make it something fun, like giving extra time off, especially around the holidays, is like, does anybody have any, gift buying, that they need to do this afternoon? We're going to let everybody go 4 hours early, so that you can go do some shopping. Little things like that. One time my sisters and I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. I digress a little bit, but I had never been at a hotel that was this, luxurious. And the one thing that struck me was just how helpful and how happy to help the staff was. And they also did something that I think is part of like the owner of the Ritz overall customer service philosophy, which is to surprise and delight.
Right.
And I think it makes a huge difference as a customer and their experience, just being able to provide them with things that they're not expecting, like things that are not pre-planned, that are going to delight them because there's something that is beneficial to them. So thinking about the holidays as a time not just to give people time off, but to maybe make it fun too, and to surprise people with extra time off, I think could be really fun. And I think
Yeah.
when people look back at their manager or at their organization, I think they can look back and just can't do anything but smile and go, well, I did end up getting 2 extra days off. Like now, it delights them.
Yeah.
It like makes people's eyes light up when they unexpectedly get something. And so thinking about the holidays as a way, the same way you would with your family and the children in your life, or people that you're looking to support, how you would do that. And I think one way you can do that is with making the holidays a little bit easier on everyone, because I think it's hard to stay focused. There's a lot going on, not only in the world, but it's just the
Oh
end of
yeah.
the year. And for some, if it's on the corporate side, it's the end of the fiscal year, so that can add some stress. Everybody's got family traveling. You might be traveling. I think it's nice to have sort of the same way we do in summer, sort of a pickup of that, like either summer Friday schedule, or, a gift giving, or, party, or, anything that kind of takes the focus off of sort of the grind of the day to day, can really, galvanize people for like going into the new year with renewed
Yeah.
energy. And I think that's what you're moving towards. That's worth it to do. Like, yes, you're going to lose a small amount of productivity by letting people out. But I think what they found over the pandemic, over the past few years, people working more part-time schedules, is that productivity actually increases the more time off that people receive.
Right.
Like our European counterparts, they're getting a year for parental leave. They're getting 4 weeks
Right.
vacation as a minimum, just as like like a baseline employee.
Mhm.
They have insurance taken care of. Like, those are things that increase the quality of life, that improve the overall productivity with an employee over time. And so if I were running an organization, those are the types of things that I would look at. And I think a holiday time is a great time to think about ways that you can enhance and enrich the employee's life with you.
Well, as we started off, Dana, and I feel like this has been a broken record with you, for like the last almost 2 years, and that is that we are in a real crunch when it comes to retaining our talent
Yes.
and keeping our teams whole. And so this is a minimal investment for creating goodwill and continuity with your team. I think it's an easy thing to do. And I agree with you about productivity, and that sometimes when you remove somebody from the office or from their working environment, because they have tasks to take care of, they know when they come back or before they leave, they got to push in a little bit harder, right?
Yeah.
And so the work gets done. It's just done at a different cadence, and I
Hmm.
think it's yeah, I think that it's something that we got to get away from, this mentality of counting the hours and watching the clock.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve anyone well,
Yeah.
ultimately.
Not for the long term. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right. And I
yeah,
love what you said. It's like it's a very minimal investment, like a few $1,000s on a holiday party can make all the difference before morale going into the new year. That's definitely an investment worth making.
yeah. I think that's really, really true. Let's talk about the bonus situation because you brought
Yeah.
this up right right out the gate that in the nonprofit sector we're not going to necessarily see that those cash gifts, but we can see gift cards or partnerships, corporate partner organizational kind of opportunities.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you see there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that over my 18 years, candidates are prepared for. Like, they're not going into the nonprofit sector to get rich. They're not thinking that they're going to get end of the year bonuses. Sometimes I'll have candidates who are coming out of the corporate world that might inquire about it, but I've never had like a super negative reaction to there not being a bonus structure. I think they understand that it's not, a company where you're like dipping into the profits to give out to the
Right.
employee. So you're kind of in a conundrum is like, how do you reward staff for
Mhm.
exceptional, performance without that
Mhm.
structure in place? And I think that for nonprofits, it's probably really important to kind of think outside the box for this. So, for example, it doesn't have to be a formal, bonus. It could be a gift card to somewhere that the person uses. Maybe speak, to their individual manager and find out what actually would be useful for them. Maybe the entire team gets free lunch for the month of January or something like that. Like there's some ways I
Yeah.
think that are cost effective that are also a cost benefit for the employee that they will be able to recognize that, well, I understand they can't give bonuses, but they do think about us, they do prioritize
Mhm.
us, they do put their money where their mouth is, that we are of value. And I think that anything you can do towards helping to retain your staff is going to be really helpful. And how you do that is engaging them with the mission, of course, and also making them feel valued. And I think that's a way to do that. One way
Right.
that I was thinking of that, actually my colleague Katie, who's the CEO of Staffing Boutique, has been really great about over the years, is like getting behind philanthropic causes that are important to me. So maybe it's not a donation or like a payment to me, but
Mhm.
like she sponsored organizations that I find important. Or like if I'm going to a gala, I have a dear friend that's the executive director of an organization, and I'm you know uh, when I get richer, I can like get on his board or something like that. Like I'm like totally involved with the organization. I'm
Yeah.
really passionate about it. She'll donate and buy us, a corporate table for the event so that I can
Wow.
attend the event. It's not a cost to me. And it's so heartwarming to be like, this person that I work for supports the
Yeah.
causes that I do. So that's, I
Right.
think, a way that you can maybe like, let's say somebody has a son or daughter that sells, Girl Scout cookies, or, some other, and you as the organization get behind that. I think that that
Mhm.
would really surprise and delight a worker too, in a way
Yeah.
that's almost, in some ways even better than like cold hard cash. Like it really
Yeah.
means you.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the late great Mary Kay Ash, who started, the Mary Kay multi-level marketing phenomena in so many ways. And one of the things that she learned as an early entrepreneur is that she never gave away cash because she said women would buy shoes for their kids or buy more groceries or pay bills.
Hmm.
And so she gave things as incentives that one, the woman wouldn't share. So the pink Cadillac, she's like, no man would drive the pink Cadillac. The husband's not going to take the car because it's
Yeah,
pink.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
he'd be embarrassed to drive a pink Cadillac. But a woman sure as hell would, because she'd be like, I earned this. This is mine. And then
Yeah.
she did the diamond jewelry that was, again, you
Ooh,
couldn't
love that.
you couldn't give it to somebody else, right? It just didn't translate. And so it became kind of a reward situation that
Yeah,
was,
like a signifier that this is yours and it's of
yeah.
from
And
your particular work. And
right.
yeah, I love
And
that.
it was kept, and I've always thought that that was like one of the smartest things I ever heard. I just thought it was genius. I was very fortunate to meet her when I was a college student, and hear her speak to a very intimate group of women, and she talked about the psychology of giving and rewarding, and it was very, very new then. I mean, we're talking like the 1980s, and people weren't even having these discussions, let alone where
Right.
we are
And
now.
navigating this all male world. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, and gratitude is like a huge thing. One other thing I want to bring up, years ago, I was on a board with an executive from a major grocery store chain in our community, major, actually a national chain. And we were talking about our staff and how could reward them. And she donated gift cards from her grocery store, and they were significant. I think they were like $50, and we had a lot of employees.
Yeah.
And it was a huge donation, but it wasn't that big of a donation for her and her team, right? I mean, it
Right.
came out of some budget, of course, but I'm sure they knew what the rate of return or usage on those cards that it wouldn't be 100%, right? Because gift cards get lost or they don't get fully employed. And we gave those cards out to our staff, and they were just like blown away because most of them were female, and they were going to have to come up with that $50 for their holiday shopping,
Yeah. Hmm.
anyway, right? And it was like an amazing, amazing thing that just kind of like fell into our laps. And so
Oh,
I
no, I absolutely love that because it's something practical that really speaks
yeah,
to like the pain point that this person has, which is holiday dinner, an extra expense at the end of the year. The other thing is like the holidays are expensive. The reason
yes,
we get bonuses at the end of the year and like treats kind of come up at the end from businesses is because it's a more expensive time. People are buying gifts and
yeah,
traveling and cooking large meals for large groups of people, and so it gets really expensive. So I'm sure that $50, especially if it was a while ago, at least it probably went
yeah.
a long way.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it probably, I mean, our team knew where it was coming from. And I've got to believe that it created customers too for that chain
Yes.
who knew, like, wow, they stepped up and they honored me. And, yeah, it was a pretty cool thing. It really, really was.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about this briefly, and I want to explore this a little bit more before we let you go,
Sure.
about outside philanthropic volunteering or donation, of having an event where your team actually goes and volunteers. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the idea of making the holidays about something bigger and perhaps
Mhm.
having time away from the 9 to 5 grind. So,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like maybe instead of just giving out cash or having like time off, you could offer, we're going to on Thursday all day, we're going to be working in a soup kitchen in 2-hour shifts. The
Mhm.
whole office is volunteering. It's a chance to
Mhm.
bond. I don't think anything really makes people feel more connected to each other than when they complete a task together. And I'm
Mhm.
sure there's like lots of team building psychology that speaks to that. But I think that it could be a really cool opportunity to get, especially if you have a larger organization, get some people that don't normally interact to interact at this sort of like special event to help build
Mhm.
some camaraderie, cross
Mhm.
pollinate the different departments, and it's all for a good cause, and it also all leads into it being a short day, a day away from work for people. I think all of
Mhm.
those things can be really like beneficial and
Mhm.
renewing, and also if you are a nonprofit, it's something that is if you're not a direct service nonprofit, and I think people sometimes can feel, oh, I'm so far away from a mission where I'm actually seeing the results of the work. That's sometimes
Mhm.
something that I'll hear from candidates. And so I think
Mhm.
it can be refreshing for people that are working at maybe like a philosophical organization, like if it's for racial equality or if it's for
Mhm.
something intangible that we it's harder versus like a soup kitchen. It's like we fed this many people today. If it's
Right,
dress for success, we dress this many people today. It's very empirical. You can really just check off like
right.
this is what happened. If you work for a foundation or some of the other types of organizations, it can just be harder to see the effects of your
Mhm.
work. Whereas like
Mhm.
this would be something that's like a tangible thing you can say right now, I contributed to this. And I think that can really help
Mhm.
morale, with a lot of nonprofits, because a lot of the organization's workers are people that specifically wanted to get into philanthropy because they are so passionate about, assisting their community.
Yeah.
And so I hate to present it like, instead of work, we're going to have you work in another way. Like I would use this in conjunction with
Yeah.
other PTO or extra time off during the holidays. But I think a fun way to also incorporate it would be like a volunteer day, where the staff all participates together. I remember when I worked at another staffing firm before Staffing Boutique, we did sort of like a run walk, like for American Heart Association together. Like those types of things really do help, I think, build camaraderie, especially when you're like working day to day in the office and everybody's kind of isolated, or especially now with you're working from home so many days. I know people who are kind of dovetailing with their boss, like their boss is in some days, they're in other days, and they're really only with their boss one day a week. This is a great opportunity to get people out from behind their computers and really like have to speak to each other. And I do think the best brainstorming comes from doing something together and being in person. So whether it's the holiday party, whether it's a volunteer event, having staff of different departments get together and speak to each other about what they do and what they think about what they do only is going to foster even better ideas and problem solve for things that are going on that they weren't even expecting to get a solution to, but it's just because of that communication, and that camaraderie that those solutions come out.
I
The organization.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think I love that you said that, because it seems to me that with a day of service, or, a service project, that's something that your team might learn something, right? That you bring back to your own organization. And I think it's
Exactly.
fascinating that we we don't look at this as an opportunity. Very few nonprofits go to volunteer at other nonprofits, which
Yeah.
it really is kind of wacky,
I'm
but
sure it
that's
sounds
something.
counterintuitive to most people,
Yeah, yeah.
and I
So I
understand that.
love that.
Like, I'm doing good all year. Why do I need to do more good? Like I get that too. And of course it's going to
Yeah.
be, based on availability and interest from your staff. But I think these are just a few ways you can kind of think outside of the box, because the nonprofit sector isn't able to offer, the same benefits that a company can, like stock options and annual
Yeah.
bonuses and things like that. And that's just the nature of the industry. But there are other things that we can do. And so kind of sussing those out, I think, is really important.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and I think it's really been an amazing thing. I want to end it with what, kind of to piggyback on what you just said. Being creative is really your number one, I think, tool in the toolbox. This group activities, the offsite field trips. I love the food truck concept. I think that's always fun.
Yeah.
Having a Christmas choir come. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can do
Yep.
that really don't take a lot of effort, but just a lot of thought, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think the staff that you're surprising and delighting,
Mhm.
will know and be able to tell when you've put like personal thought into it. It's like the grocery store gift card. It's something, I think it meant something to them because it was something very specific and very thoughtful. And I think more so than the amount, it's about kind of the thought. As with any gift, it's kind of about the thought that
Yeah.
counts. So
It's the thought that counts. Yeah, absolutely. Well, your thoughts always count with us, my friend. Dana Scurlock, Director of Recruitment for Staffing Boutique. One of the great joys for me is when I see your name on the booking schedule. I always know I'm going to have a lively conversation, but more importantly, I'm going to learn something. And so it's really been fun to have you, Dana Scurlock, again, Director of Recruitment for Staffing Boutique. You can learn more about Staffing Boutique at staffingboutique.org and learn about their work and what they do. Super, super interesting to find a partner such as Staffing Boutique that works with the nonprofit sector. And so, what a blessing you are to us, because you really give us information, ideas, and trends, and thought leadership on what's going on in our sector. And so, thank you so much, Dana. Thank you.
oh, it's
Thank
such
you.
a pleasure always to be here with you. You always have insightful questions and topics, and it's just fun to unload some of this information that, just anecdotal information that we've been compiling
Yeah.
over all these years and have like it be put to good use. So
Yeah.
appreciate you. Hope you have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm full of gratitude. And now, after having this conversation, I feel more armed to express that gratitude, right? Because that's what it's all about. If we don't express it, then it doesn't it doesn't have impact. It doesn't go anywhere. So this has really been a fabulous opportunity. Hey, we want to make sure we give a shout out and express our gratitude towards our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraiser Friday, Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. Wow, Dana, I really love this conversation, and I know that a lot of our viewers and listeners are going to be using some of these great ideas and setting their example of gratitude.
I
So,
certainly hope so. Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a great afternoon. And as we like to end every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we want to remind everyone and ourselves to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone.